Okay, today we're gonna make a tempura cauliflower. I'm gonna show you how to make tempura, which you can apply to any vegetable. We're just gonna use, or you can use it on prawns or meat, stuff like that. But we're gonna use cauliflower today. With tempura, I think a lot of times you see it with this really thin soy. It's basically just soy and vinegar put together, and you dip it in that. I hate that idea of like making sure something's really crisp and then putting it in water. It's just like super counterintuitive. So we're gonna make a little aioli that we'll get started on right now, and then I'll show you the rest of the dish. So I have a full onion that I'm just gonna julienne. You don't have to be too perfect here because we'll blitz it. And then I got a pan heating up, of course. Put a little bit of oil in there. It's not yogurt, it's oil. Just like to reuse my plastic. I got the world's smallest saute pan. For sure use a bigger pan, but they'll cook down, it's okay. We wanna caramelize them. So if you've never caramelized onions before, you basically wanna like sweat them as normal over medium heat, and then you'll turn the heat down. Once that water starts to pull out of them, which salting them right now will help with. Add some salt. That'll get that moisture out, they'll shrink down, and then once they're like at a point where they're sauteing, then we will turn down that heat to a lower heat, and slowly we'll caramelize the sugars in the onion. And then we'll add some curry powder at the end, toast that, and then that'll be a part of our dipping sauce. While we wait for this, we can get our dipping sauce ready. So this is gonna be, this is aioli. I mean, aioli technically has garlic in it. We're not gonna put garlic, but yeah, it's mayo. It's a flavored mayo. So I think I did this in another video, but super easy to make. You just need some egg yolk. Save your whites if you'll eat them, which I will. And we just want the yolks. And this is all kind of dependent on how much you want to make. If you want to make a big batch of this, it holds for like a couple weeks in the fridge, so it's up to you how much you want to make. I'm going to do a 2 yolk because it's just for one dish, but I would like to have some extra for dinner later. So just some yolks in here. Yeah, and you don't really need to like, I mean, you can look up the measurements for like a basic mayo, but it's, when you're making a small batch like this, it's so easy to just eyeball, and it tastes way better than the like Hellmann's or Miracle Whip or whatever you'll buy from the store. It's worth doing. It like literally takes 10 minutes, and then you can, but if you don't want to do this and you just want to buy store-bought mayo, buy store-bought mayo and then just do what we're going to do with the onions and blend it into store-bought mayo. There we go. Okay, so Dijon mustard is all you need. Dijon mustard. Dijon mustard is a really good binder. Egg is also a really good binder. So if you put both in, it's basically guaranteed not to split. So I just put like, yeah, a tablespoon of that in. And then normally you would add some vinegar at this point as well. But what I'm gonna do is, because I want it to like kind of be light and refreshing, especially with something like a fried food, like a tempura, I really want to like lighten it as much as possible. So for my acid, I'm going to just use lemon juice, but I'm also going to put the zest in there. The zest is like non-acidic, but it has a really good like fruit flavor, and also will help the color stay nice and vibrant and bright. We're looking for like a really yellow color here, which we'll get from the curry powder. So I'll put the zest of 1 in, and the juice of 2. I'm putting a little bit extra acid in than I normally would because it's gonna be a caramelized onion mayo, so you're gonna have all this sweetness from those onions and this really like rich umami. So that's why I'm adding a little bit more acid than normal. If you're just making mayo, I would say start with 1, do your emulsification, check if you need more. You can always add more after. Yeah. So the juice of 2, oh, I got something on my nose. Do I have food on my face? Okay, we're good. And I bought a nice new little strainer. Look at that, fits right over the blender, dude. $3 in Chinatown. Or if you got one of those fancy, like, push it over the food juicers, use that. I don't, but we're always looking for sponsorships. If you just want to e-transfer me and Brendan, honestly, hit us up on Instagram and just give us money. Okay. So I have this all prepped, and I'm going to do the emulsification last, because our onions are going to take a while to cook. But now I just don't have to worry about it. I can work on the elements of the rest of the dish while I wait for this. When you're cooking, like, yeah, when you're cooking, period, like, I try and think like that, think a step ahead, so that you're not like wasting your time in the kitchen. Because I think people think that cooking is really daunting, and it is if you're just doing one thing at a time, and you're like not able to multitask, but anyone's able to multitask. You just have to like plan a little bit in your head. I'm awful at multitasking, and I can manage to like cook things pretty quickly. So yeah, just try and make use of your time. We got this prepped. We'll do the emulsification later while we get started on the tempura. Oh shit. World's smallest saute pan here. Slowly. And I'll show how to make the tempura batter. Shit, I put the eggs away. I need the eggs. You need 1 egg. Tempura batter is, there's so many versions of it. And they're all honestly pretty good. The only like key point I would say is to make sure your product is really cold. What happens in a fryer is the colder the product is, because the oil's so hot and oil doesn't bind with water. So you're putting something cold into something very hot, and chemically what happens is like everything pushes away. So the colder it is, the less oil can actually absorb. So that's why tempuras traditionally, I mean, if you have good tempura, it's not greasy, because everything is so cold that it pushes the oil away, but it still does the thing where it like fries it and makes it really crisp. So what I do is make my tempura batter, and then I'll actually put it in the freezer so it's like really, really cold, and then I'll do like the dip or the dredge and fry it last minute. But I'll do this batter and I'll show you how to do it, and then we'll pop it in the freezer for like 10 minutes. Okay, what else goes in here? Let me look, I wrote it down. 2/3 of a cup of ice cold water. Yeah, I'll measure a bit. Where the fuck is my... Okay, so to this egg yolk, I have 2/3 of a cup of water. And I'm gonna mix this stuff separately. Then I'm gonna like do the wet and the dry separately, because we're gonna use a little bit of regular flour. And when you mix regular flour, you start to develop gluten, and that will turn things into a different texture. We don't really wanna mix this batter much. So we'll mix everything separately really, really well, and then just like very lightly stir it in with chopsticks. I'm gonna add a pinch of salt to that. I'm also gonna add a A little bit of baking powder. I'm not making much, so that should be enough baking powder. 1/4 and 1/8 of a teaspoon or whatever. That's just to help it get a little bit of a rise when it hits the oil. And this part you can mix as much as you want. It's like once that flour goes in, then it's like you really don't want to mix it. So those are, yeah, that's basically all of our ingredients other than our flours, which we're going to use half rice flour and half all-purpose flour. I'm going to use like a 1/2 cup. Or should I use a 1/4 cup? That's not that much. Let's try a 1/4 cup and just see what it has. Now rice flour will not develop gluten. So you can mix this one and see where you're at for texture, or if you're going to need more. Yeah, we'll put another 1/2 cup in there, or sorry, 1/4 cup. So 1/2 cup total of rice flour. Nice. And we'll add a little bit of all-purpose flour as well. I'm going to get this whisk out of there now because I don't want to work that flour too much. So yeah, about a 1/2 cup of each. And then I'll just very lightly stir in this all-purpose flour. And if you're finding it's looking a little bit too thick, you can always add a little bit of water. But this is looking pretty perfect. And don't worry too much about getting it super smooth. Again, we don't want to create much gluten here. So just a little bit of stir, just enough to incorporate. That's it. I'm going to pop this in the freezer to keep it really, really cold, and it'll be ready for frying. So our aioli is ready to emulsify. This is ready to fry. Now we basically just have to wait for these onions and clean our cauliflower. The cauliflower, again, use whatever vegetable you want. Yam is like something that you'll see a lot, which works really nice. Broccoli, anything, prawns, use whatever you want. The thing I'm just trying to show here is that how to make tempura batter, but yeah, you can apply it to basically whatever you want. So if you're breaking down cauliflower, I may as well show you how to do this. Cut it in half. You see this root? Take that in half as well, and then you have this 1/4, and then you can cut straight down the stem. And then from there, you can gather your florets. And we're gonna kind of cherry pick the nice ones for frying, about this size. Probably wouldn't go bigger than that. And then if there's anything that's big, just cut them down the stem. I'm also going to put this in the freezer while we wait for our oil to heat up, just so that this is really cold as well. Put that on top of those blueberries there. Okay, so our onions are cooked down, and we got a little bit of color on them. And now I want to toast some curry powder. This is just a classic Madras curry powder. It's like the most common one you see at the store. I don't actually normally like to use it, but I really like how mild it is, and it'll work really nice with like the citrus lightness of our mayo. But you definitely want to add this at the end. You don't want to cook them too much because spices will burn. That's why I add them at the end when our onions are basically done. And just let that toast a little bit. Yeah, and just pretty much wait for 2 videos to be done. Ooh. Okay, so in my head I wanted to caramelize them, but I went with a more sauteed approach today. So you actually want to let these cool. What the fuck am I doing? Get something to cool them. So we're just gonna cool them as quick as possible. That's why I'm putting them in a strainer so the air can get underneath. I'm just gonna pop them in the freezer for like 2-3 minutes. Just obviously can't like put a bunch of really hot stuff into egg yolks because the eggs will cook. So they don't have to be like ice cold for this, just like not hot enough to cook eggs. Okay, our onions are cooled enough. So we're gonna finish this sauce and finish this dish. I'm gonna add, I'm honestly probably not gonna use all this onion, but you just cut up a whole onion and you're like, whatever, use what you can. Now I got some curry sauteed onions for something else. No prob. I'm also gonna add a bunch of fresh herbs. This is just flat leaf parsley, but just freshen it up a little bit. And then of course a good pinch of salt. And then we'll do the normal, the emulsification. So just add your oil slowly, let it blend a little bit first, and then slowly add oil. With mayos, you're just like looking for consistency. So there's no like, with like a vinaigrette you can measure and there's like a ratio, but with something like an egg yolk, every egg is a different size, every yolk is a different size. So you're honestly best off to just look for consistency. So just pour your oil slowly, stop often, check, run a spoon through it, run your finger through it, see if it has that like, you don't want it too stiff. You don't want like stiff peaks. Like, I hate that store-bought mayo where it's like, it literally looks like blubber. You want like nice, like spreadable, like a nice sauce. I'll show you what it looks like, hopefully. Okay. We got a nice saucy consistency. Check your seasoning. That tastes nice. That tastes so nice with that. I'm just gonna add a splash of vinegar because I just like it kind of bright. And those, you can taste those onions quite a bit. Like those onions really make it like rich and really good. Okay, we're gonna do the tempura cauli now. We got our elements, they're ice cold. And I got oil heating up here. With deep frying at home, I have a pretty good eye for oil, but if you don't, you can buy a thermometer for like $3. You can honestly get thermometers at the dollar store. You can just clip onto your pot. You want 350 up to 375 would be the highest. Minimum 350, 375 highest, somewhere around there. Keep in mind we're putting ice cold product into it, so your oil temperature is gonna drop. So maybe get it closer to 375 and work one piece at a time. What else can I say about frying? If you're frying in a pot, do not fill your pot too high because displacement happens. If I kind of eyeballed it good, it's halfway up the pot. If you're going past the halfway point, you're gonna want to fry in small batches because if you overload that, oil bubbles when it fries. It can bubble over, start a grease fire. I'm not liable for any grease fires you start, that's for sure. So just do this one piece at a time. Pop it in the oil. So yeah, it'll take about 2 minutes, approximately. And then whenever you fry too, you just want to make sure you have something set up for after. So like a lot of people use a bake sheet with a wire rack, which honestly works great. I don't fry that often, so I'm just gonna use a little strainer. But you just want something air can get underneath it. So you can see this thing will let some air underneath it, and then it's also aerated. So it won't be sitting in its own, in the little remnants of grease that are on it. If it sits in that will just absorb because the temperature is going down. So I'm just gonna put this over a paper towel, air can get underneath, and then we'll plate up. And obviously, like if you're cooking for more people too, like just use a bigger pot. we're just making one dish, so just a small pot. You can absolutely reuse this oil. So if you're gonna do tempura, like make a big thing and keep it in, make a big thing of batter and keep it in the fridge and like make it all day. And play around with what vegetables you want to use. So you can see like what's crazy about this is normally you take something out of the fryer and it still has enough grease that you can salt it. With tempura, it like doesn't happen if you do it properly because it's like there's no grease. But I'm gonna, fuck, this thing is tiny. I just want it to be in the squeeze bottle though because it will look better. Height is a good call.
Yeah, height will.
Obviously, you don't have to do this part. I was, you know, we're trying to make it look good for the fucking, for the people. So we don't need that much in here, but we need like at least 4 tablespoons, just so I got enough to play with. So yeah, if you have a squeeze bottle, just maybe like invest in a funnel. Fuck. Okay, what if I do this though? Nice.
Minimal waste. You're gonna. Yeah.
That's okay. I'll just kind of clean as you go with cooking, you know. Just you do shit like this, and that's okay. Not fancy, but presentable. That's how I live my life. Not fancy, but presentable. Fucking freezer's open. Okay. So to plate, if you're plating fried foods, they are really. They're really slippery. I have no spoons. They're really slippery, so like if you're, like let's say you're plating something and like you're taking it to the table, if you put a bunch of fried foods on just a plate, it will slide all over the place. So a little trick we do in the kitchen is we put a little sauce on the plate just to help glue it. So there's less chance of slide. And then we're gonna put some of our tempuras down. And then I'm just gonna kind of go in with this squeeze bottle and fill in some gaps of sauce. Try and keep it kind of nice and tidy. Well, that didn't work that well. And then just finish with a pinch of salt. That's that. A little tempura cauliflower. Again, I just think that like doing a sauce like this makes more sense because it won't make anything soggy. And you'll have this really nice crispy cauliflower with this like nice, refreshing kind of rich sauce. Let's see. I mean, it's been sitting for a minute now, but let's just see. Wow, cauliflower's cooked perfect. Shit, the last outro went so good. Yeah, so that's it. If you make this one, let me know. If you have any questions about any of the techniques or anything, just hit me up on Instagram. It's always in the description. Thanks for watching, as always. Appreciate any comments, anything like that. I'm not gonna ask you to do all this stuff, but if you do the stuff, I would really appreciate it. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.